The U.S. Coast Guard has deployed crews from the air in Houston in wake of Tropical Storm Harvey. On board the MH-60 Jayhawk helicopter, the Coast Guard rescue teams managed to airlift dozens of flood victims to safety. The Coast Guard was also deployed on the ground, using boats to bring stranded families to safety, to dry lands, and makeshift emergency centers.
I first noticed the water was up over the curb, and within about 2 hours, we had water in the house. And we haven't heard any official word from any official here. But we out here, mayor, we looking for you. City councilman, we looking for you. Anybody of importance, we looking for you.
We know one lady, she won't come out. She's handicapped. Okay. She's over here on the left side. Right. So we know she's there. We know a couple of houses that's saying they're going to ride it out. So we're not for sure exactly how many people.
How deep is the water inside?
Right now, the water is coming up to your shoulder by the time you get to the end of the corner.
Houston is facing worsening flooding in the coming days as Tropical Storm Harvey dumps more rain on the nation's fourth largest city, swelling rivers to record levels and forcing federal engineers on Monday to release massive amounts of water from area reservoirs in hopes of controlling the rushing currents. Harvey, the most powerful hurricane to strike Texas in more than 50 years, first hit land late Friday, August 25th, and has killed at least 2 people. It has since lingered around Texas's Gulf Coast, where it is forecast to remain for several more days, drenching parts of the region with a year's worth of rain in a span of a week. What's gotten less attention are storms like Harvey's links to man-made climate change and the role unchecked development in the Houston area has played in worsening the floods. According to a ProPublica Texas Tribune collaboration, quote, scientists, other experts, and federal officials say Houston's explosive growth is also largely to blame. As millions have flocked to the metropolitan area in recent decades, local officials have largely snubbed stricter building regulations, allowing developers to pave over crucial acres of prairie land that once absorbed huge amounts of rainwater. It continues that this has led to an excess of floodwater during storms that chokes the city's vast Bayou network, drainage systems, and 2 huge federally owned reservoirs, endangering many nearby homes. The Real News also recently spoke to leading climatologist Ben Horton about the recent reports from NASA and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration showing increasingly higher global temperatures, and he explained why this dangerous human-caused trend could mean more disasters like Harvey or the historic superstorm Sandy that tore through the East Coast in 2012.
The rates of rise towards the end of the century, if we don't do anything about climate change, will be somewhere in the excess of 40 millimetres per year. Now, what are the profound impacts of that? Well, if we want to highlight one recent event that devastated the mid-Atlantic shoreline, and that's Hurricane Sandy. Now, Hurricane Sandy was an unusual event. It had an unusual track. It was a slow-moving large storm, but it was on top of a baseline, and that baseline is sea level. So sea level has been rising along the US Atlantic coast. Our research group has been looking at how sea level rise affects how often Hurricane Sandy occurred in the past, how often that type of event occurs at the present, and how often it would occur in the future. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, an event like Hurricane Sandy occurred approximately 1 every 500 years. So an event that was very rare occurred 6 or 7 lifetimes before an event of that magnitude. Because sea level has risen, and it's risen about 30 centimetres since the Industrial Revolution in and around New York City, that event occurs approximately every 25 years. If we don't do anything about climate change, by 2040, 2050, so within our lifetime, Hurricane Sandy may occur every 5 years, twice a decade. Hurricane Sandy caused $70 billion of damage to the US Atlantic coast. It affected people's lives. People lost their lives, lost their homes. And that gives you the seriousness of climate change.
For more, go to therealnews.com.